Are you searching for a deeper, more personal connection to Jesus, yet feel a disconnect or struggle to find a truly direct spiritual path? Many seekers yearn for this profound relationship. This video, inspired by Joel Goldsmith's timeless wisdom, provides the answer, illuminating a clear, immediate, and deeply resonant way to experience Jesus directly in your life. All right, everyone, settle in for a sec. Now, old school Joel, he wouldn't kick things off with a bunch of fluff or a fire and brimstone vibe. Nah, he'd just get quiet, look out at the crowd, and hit them with a real gentle but heavy truth bomb. He'd be like, "Friends, let's get one thing straight from the jump. This ain't about joining a new club or learning some fancy rules. This is about the real deal. This is about you and your direct line to the big guy, the Christ within. We're talking about cutting out the middleman. No more waiting for a sign, no more hoping you're on the list. This is about realizing your own connection is already lit up and ready to go. So, if you're tired of just going through the motions and you're ready to find out how to plug directly into the source of all that peace, power, and purpose, you got to stick around, because we're about to get into the good stuff. So, it's not about looking out there for a savior. It's about recognizing the savior in here. Joel showed us the switch. The wild part is what happens when you actually flip it. If this hit home for you, if you felt that little zing of truth, do me a solid like this video. Drop a comment with the number 33, symbolizing the Christ consciousness in full manifestation, and subscribe. Don't just lurk in the shadows. Join the crew so we keep diving deeper into this incredible journey together. Let's get this conversation started. Of course, here is the expansion of your first keynote, continuing directly from the flow of the introduction. You gotta stick around, because we're about to get into the good stuff. So, let's just dive right into the first and biggest thing Joel was always trying to get across to people. The God connection is already lit. Now, when I say that, I don't mean it in some fluffy, inspirational poster kind of way. I'm talking about a concrete or operational fact. Most of us, we were raised in a spiritual framework that's all about seeking. It's like God is this distant CEO on the top floor of a skyscraper, and we're down in the lobby filling out application forms, hoping our prayers get forwarded to the right department, trying to earn enough good boy points to maybe, just maybe, get a 5-minute meeting. We're begging for a connection, hoping for a signal, waiting for a sign. We're walking around spiritual deserts looking for a Wi-Fi password, completely dehydrated, while holding a full bottle of water we just haven't cracked open yet. Joel came along and basically said, "Stop it. Just stop all that striving." He flipped the entire script. He said the fundamental error, the primal mistake that causes all the suffering, is this sense of separation. It's the feeling that there's a me over here and a God over there, and I gotta build a bridge. But what if the bridge isn't needed? What if the connection isn't something you have to establish, but something you only have to acknowledge? He taught that this link, this oneness with the divine, isn't a prize you win for good behavior. It's the very ground of your being. It's the factory setting of your soul. You can't not have it. You can only be unaware of it, or ignore it, or straight up deny it. But your denial doesn't make it any less real. It's like your heartbeat. You don't have to believe in it for it to keep you alive. You can be totally oblivious to it, but it's still there doing its job, keeping the whole system running. This is the core of the direct link. It's direct because there is no distance. It's not a long-distance call. There are no roaming charges. It's an internal landline. The presence of God isn't a location you travel to. It's the very substance you are made of. So when you're praying from a place of, "Oh God, please come down and be with me," you're actually praying from a state of illusion. You're asking for what already is. It's like a fish in the ocean begging for water. The real work, then, isn't one of attainment. It's not about getting something you lack. The real work is one of realization. It's about settling down, getting quiet, and shifting your awareness from the outer noise to that inner hum of eternity that's already buzzing inside you. It's about taking your attention off the problems, the lacks, the fears, all the stuff that screams separation, and gently turning it to the silent, constant fact of your union with the infinite. You aren't a sinner in the hands of an angry God. You are the beloved child, the very expression of a loving Father, and you have never, for one single second, been disconnected. The phone has always been off the hook on God's end. We're the ones who have been putting ours on mute. We're the ones who have been putting ours on mute. And this is where the whole Jesus thing gets flipped on its head in the most incredible way. This brings us to the second cornerstone of Joel's message. Jesus was the blueprint, not the exception. Now, for most of my life, I saw Jesus as this one-off, supernatural anomaly. He was the spiritual MVP, the one guy who got the divine cheat codes, playing a game the rest of us could never hope to compete in. We were down here in the minor leagues, and he was up there, untouchable, a singular miracle. We'd worship him, we'd put his picture on the wall, but we'd also subconsciously use his perfection as proof of our own failure. We'd think, well, of course, he could do all that stuff. He was Jesus. But me? I'm just a regular person. Goldsmith completely dismantled that idea. He said that view wasn't just wrong, it was a total cop-out. It was a way to let ourselves off the hook. He taught that Jesus was not a freak of spiritual nature, but the ultimate example of a human being who was fully, completely awake to the truth of their own being. He was the first one to fully download the operating system and run it without any bugs. He was the prototype, the proof of concept that showed every single one of us what is possible. He wasn't a ceiling, he was a floor. He demonstrated the baseline potential of a life lived in the conscious, constant awareness of that direct link we just talked about. He wasn't special because he had a connection we don't have. He was special because he knew he had it, he trusted it utterly, and he never, ever unplugged from it. Think of it like this. You've got a brand new, top-of-the-line smartphone. It can do incredible things: high-definition video, instant global communication, access to all the world's knowledge. But if you only use it to make phone calls, you're living in a tiny fraction of its potential. Jesus was the one who read the entire manual, understood the full capabilities of the device, and used it to its absolute maximum. He showed us what this human being, technology, is truly capable of when it's fully activated and aligned with its source. The healings, the wisdom, the transcendent peace, these weren't magic tricks reserved for one person. They were the natural, predictable outputs of a consciousness that is fully plugged into the infinite. He was the first to fully embody the Christ, which is just a fancy word for that divine sonship, that true spiritual identity that exists as a potential within every single one of us. He wasn't the only Son of God. He was the one who showed the rest of the sons and daughters of God who they truly are. He charted the map and left it for us, not to admire, but to follow. He walked the path first to show us that the path was, in fact, walkable. The goal isn't to worship his journey from a distance. The goal is to have the guts and the faith to take the first step on our own, trusting that the same power that flowed through him is waiting, right now, to flow through us. Trusting that the same power that flowed through him is waiting, right now, to flow through us. And that right there, that's the pivot. That's the moment everything changes, and it leads us directly into the third key: ditch the outer search for the inner tap in. See, once you get that Jesus was showing you your own potential, the whole spiritual game shifts. You realize you've been playing a rigged game, looking for answers in all the wrong places. It's like you lost your keys in the dark, and instead of feeling around for them where you dropped them, you keep running down the street to look under a lamppost because the light is better over there. We are all lamppost searchers. We look for God in churches, in books, in teachers, in rituals, in the approval of other people. We chase after spiritual experiences, we hunt for signs and wonders, thinking that if we just find the right technique or the right guru, then we'll finally connect. Joel called this the arm of flesh. It's relying on something outside of your own realized consciousness to save you. And he was brutal about it. He said all of that, the endless seeking, the church hopping, the book collecting, is just a distraction. A divine distraction, maybe, but a distraction nonetheless. It keeps you busy, it makes you feel like you're making progress on a spiritual journey. But it's a journey that never actually arrives because you're looking for your destination on a map of some other territory. You're seeking a spiritual high, an emotional confirmation, an intellectual understanding, but God isn't an emotion or an idea. God is the very core of your being, the I am that you are. So, the only place you will ever find that is by turning within. This is the great inner shift. It's about moving from being a spiritual tourist to a spiritual explorer. The tourist collects souvenirs, doctrines, dogmas, certificates of completion. The explorer goes into the uncharted wilderness of their own soul. This inner tap isn't about getting a new belief system. It's about a direct, unmediated experiences. It's the practice of shutting out the noise of the world, the fears, the opinions, the endless stream of thoughts, and sinking into the profound silence that is already there at your core. It's in that silence that the connection, which was always live, becomes a felt reality. You're not asking for anything. You're not even really thinking. You're just being. You're resting in the awareness of I am, and in that rest, something incredible happens. The sense of a separate, you trying to reach a separate God, begins to dissolve. You start to feel this current. It's a flow of intelligence, of life, of peace, of power. It's not something you create, it's something you permit. You're not building the connection, you're removing the blocks to your awareness of its presence. You stop begging for a drop of water from some external source, and you finally realize you're standing in the ocean. The thirst wasn't for water to be given to you. The thirst was for you to finally open your mouth and drink from what has always been surrounding you. This is the tap in. It requires no special words, no specific posture. It only requires a moment of sincere, quiet attention, turned away from the world and toward the infinite landscape of your own being. It only requires a moment of sincere, quiet attention, turned away from the world and toward the infinite landscape of your own being. Now, this might sound simple, but don't get it twisted. Simple ain't always easy. This brings us to the fourth game changer. It's a consciousness shift, not a rulebook. This is where a lot of folks get hung up. We're so conditioned, so programmed, to think that spirituality is about following a list of instructions. Do this, don't do that. Say these words, show up at this time, eat this, avoid that. We want a spiritual to-do list we can check off and then feel like we've earned our blessing for the day. It's transactional. It's like we're trying to be good employees of God, hoping for a promotion or at least to avoid getting fired. But that whole framework, Joel would say, is still part of the old game. It's still operating on the level of a separate you, trying to please a separate God through your external behavior. What Goldsmith is talking about is a complete demolition and rebuild of your entire inner operating system. It's not about modifying your behavior. It's about transforming the very source from which your behavior springs. It's the difference between painstakingly polishing a cracked and dusty mirror every single day versus finally getting a brand new, pristine mirror that stays clear with minimal effort. The old way is the polishing, the endless cycle of sin, guilt, repentance, trying harder and failing again. The new way is the replacement. It's a fundamental shift in what you know yourself to be. When that shift happens, the behavior changes naturally. Not because you're forcing it, but because it's the organic expression of who you now understand yourself to be. You don't teach a rose how to be fragrant. Its fragrance is a natural consequence of it being a rose. This shift is from a sense of being a human being who might have a spark of God in them, to the realization that you are a spiritual being, a child of God, having a temporary human experience. When that clicks, everything changes. You stop trying to get peace from the world. You realize peace is what you are, and you let it flow out into the world. You stop trying to get power to solve your problems. You realize the power of the infinite is the very core of your being, and you let it handle the situation. This is why Joel was so big on meditation and contemplation. It's not another rule to follow, it's the practical technology for facilitating this shift. It's the daily, quiet practice of withdrawing your attention from the outer world of effects, the problems, the drama, the opinions, and placing it on the inner world of cause, on the I am. You're not praying for things to change. You're abiding in the presence until your consciousness changes, and then you watch as the things, the circumstances, the relationships, the healing, naturally reorganize themselves around your new, elevated state of awareness. The outer world has to conform to the inner reality, so the work is never out there. The work is always only in here, in the quiet, profound, and patient restructuring of your own awareness from a sense of lack and separation to the lived truth of your oneness with the all. This profound inner restructuring naturally leads us to the ultimate revelation, the fifth key: your true identity is the Christ within. This is the big one, the concept that can feel the most radical, and honestly, the one that makes a lot of people in traditional settings a little nervous. We have to be clear here, because this isn't some new age ego trip. Joel wasn't saying you are the human person with all your flaws and hang-ups who is also Jesus of Nazareth. That would be spiritual insanity. What he was pointing to is something far more majestic and humbling. He taught that every single one of us has a human self and a spiritual self. The human self is the one you're probably most familiar with. The one with a name, a social security number, a history, a personality, a bunch of preferences, and a whole backpack full of fears and traumas. This is the you that feels separate. This is the costume you're wearing for this lifetime. But behind that costume, animating it, giving it life, is your true self, your spiritual identity. This is the Christ. This isn't the man who walked the earth 2,000 years ago. It's the universal, divine principle of sonship that he so perfectly embodied. It is the only begotten of the Father, the one direct, perfect expression of God that constitutes your true being. Think of it like a wave in the ocean. The wave has a temporary individual form. It has a beginning and an end. It can be big, small, rough, or gentle. That's your human, personal sense of I, but what is the wave's true fundamental identity? Is it the temporary form, or is it the ocean itself? The wave is the ocean, expressing itself in a specific, individual way for a moment in time. Your true identity, the Christ of you, is the ocean, the infinite, eternal, divine consciousness, having a you experience. This Christ is your divine sonship. It is the perfect child of a perfect God, incapable of sin, sickness, or death, because it is one with its source. It's not something you become, it's what you already are, right now, behind the veil of your human misunderstanding. When you begin to grasp this, it changes your entire approach to life. You stop trying to fix the wave, the temporary, human personality, with all its flaws and problems. Instead, you shift your allegiance. You start identifying with the ocean. You turn your attention away from the drama of the personal self, and you abide in the conscious awareness of your spiritual self. You stop praying as a needy, separate human begging for help, and you learn to pray from the standpoint of the Christ, acknowledging the omnipresence of God's harmony right where the problem appears to be. This is the secret behind the healings in Joel's work. It wasn't about battling a disease, it was about revealing the eternal, perfect Christ identity where a sick person seemed to be. It was about realizing that the sickness was attached to the false, human sense of self, and that the truth of our being is forever whole, complete, what untouched by the illusions of the physical senses. So your spiritual work is not one of self-improvement, but of self-discovery. It's not about making a bad person good, it's about uncovering the perfect spiritual being that was there all along, buried under layers of misidentification. You are not a sinner trying to become a saint. You are the Christ, waking up to the glorious and undeniable truth of your own being. And in that awakening, the human experience naturally, inevitably transforms to reflect more of that divine reality. And in that awakening, the human experience naturally, inevitably, transforms to reflect more of that divine reality. This brings us to our final and perhaps most practical point. The kingdom is your current reality, not a future destination. This is the ultimate payoff of this entire teaching. For most of us, the kingdom of heaven was sold as a retirement package. It was the pie in the sky when you die. It was a gated community in the clouds that you might get the keys to later, after a lifetime of good behavior and correct belief. It was always somewhere else, some other time. This mindset completely divorces spirituality from your present moment experience. It makes God a future event, and it keeps you stuck in a state of perpetual longing and waiting. Joel Goldsmith shattered that entire timeline. He taught, just as Jesus did, that the kingdom of God is at hand. It is within you. It is not a location you go to. It is a dimension of consciousness you become aware of. It's not a reward for a life well lived. It is the very substance of a life lived well. Think of it like this: you're in a room and it's pitch black. You're stumbling over furniture, bruising your shins, convinced the room is a dangerous and hostile place. You spend your whole life praying for the lights to be turned on in some other room, in some other building, after you're dead. But what if someone told you that the light switch for this room is right here on the wall next to you? The moment you flip that switch, the entire nature of the room is transformed. It's the same room, the same furniture, but your experience of it is completely different. The light was always available. The kingdom is that light. It is the conscious awareness of God's omnipresence, right here, right now, permeating this very moment and every circumstance. This is why the inner work is so critical. When you sit in meditation, when you turn within, you aren't trying to teleport your consciousness to some far-off heaven. You are flipping the inner switch. You are adjusting your perception to behold the kingdom that is already fully present. You are becoming aware of the harmony, the peace, the infinite intelligence, and the divine love that constitutes the true reality of this situation behind the scary appearance. The problem was never the absence of the kingdom. The problem was our unawareness of it. Our senses report a world of lack, conflict, and fear, and we believe them. But the spiritual truth, the reality of the kingdom, is one of infinite supply, perfect harmony, and unconditional love. Your job is not to create that, but to bear witness to it. To let your consciousness become so clear, so still, that it becomes a transparency through which this divine reality can begin to appear in your human experience. This is the end of seeking. This is the realization that you are already home. You've just been believing you were homeless. The peace you crave is the very air you spiritually breathe. The supply you need is the very substance of which you are formed. It's not about changing your world. It's about seeing through it to the spiritual reality that underpins it. When you do that, the world as you experience it cannot help but change to align with the higher truth you are perceiving. The healing, the solution, the supply, they don't get manufactured and sent to you. They are revealed as having been there all along, hidden in plain sight, waiting for your perception to clear enough to see them.